All right, let's get straight into it. This is a Code Ninja security advisory, transmitting live, because believe it or not, an uninitialized memory corruption vulnerability from way back in 2010 is literally still haunting networks today. I'm operating as your senior white hat security researcher for this explainer, and we are officially executing a coordinated vulnerability disclosure. We're analyzing CVE 2010-0806. It is a catastrophic use after free vulnerability buried right inside the peer objects component, specifically that iepeers.dll file of Microsoft Internet Explorer. Now you're probably thinking, wait, Internet Explorer from 2010? Yep, absolutely. Because the telemetry doesn't lie, guys, and unpatched legacy systems are keeping this eternal zero-day alive and actively targeted in the wild. My objective today is simple: to give you the immediate mitigation intelligence you need to either force a vendor patch or architecturally abandon this vulnerable software across your perimeter.
This staggering 16-year timeline really illustrates exactly why we're issuing this urgent intelligence drop right now. Look at the origin point here, March 2010. That is when this flaw was first discovered as a zero-day, already being exploited. But the threat didn't just fade away after the initial patches rolled out, not even close. By July 2011, researchers were seeing a massive escalation in obfuscated JavaScript attacks actively targeting this exact vulnerability. Fast forward to November 2024, and the National Vulnerability Database was actually still making extensive catalog updates just to track this persistent ghost. And that brings us to May 2026, when CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, officially dropped the hammer with a strict federal mandate. The sheer persistence of this threat means immediate mitigation is absolutely non-negotiable.
Section 1. Comms Check. Before we dive into the technical weeds of the exploit chain, we need to pause for a mandatory communication link setup. Look, in the security community, visibility is survival. So I need to know the operational status of the people receiving this transmission. Drop your status in the comments below right now. We are running a census to accurately gauge the blast radius of this threat. Are you operating in a modernized, patched environment? Or are you still supporting legacy infrastructure relying on outdated browser architecture? You've got to be honest here. We literally cannot secure what we refuse to acknowledge.
And for your ongoing safety, go ahead and subscribe to @cybertech79. Enable those notifications so you don't miss future real-time intelligence drops from this feed. Also, hit that like button right now. Consider that your formal acknowledgement of receipt for this transmission. In the world of coordinated vulnerability disclosure, we really need to know that the signal is breaking through the noise.
Section 2. The blast radius.
Let's pull up the telemetry data and define the exact impact this vulnerability has on the perimeter. We have to understand the blast radius if an adversary actually detonates this exploit inside your network. This vulnerability carries a catastrophic legacy CVSS 2.0 base score of 9.3 out of 10. Just let that sink in for a second. Even under the updated CVSS 3.1 metrics, it still commands an 8.8 high severity rating. And the vector metrics? They're chilling. Network access requires low complexity, zero privileges are required, and the impact to confidentiality, integrity, and availability all rated as high. The crucial takeaway here is that this is an unauthenticated remote attack vector with maximum systemic impact.
Now, the target profile is highly specific. If your legacy boxes are still running Internet Explorer 6, 6 Service Pack 1, or 7, which you'll often find on older architectures like Windows Server 2003, XP, or early Vista, remote attackers can bypass authentication entirely. They achieve total system compromise via remote code execution just by luring a user to a maliciously crafted web page. Literally one wrong click, the iepeers.dll component crashes when it tries to access an invalid pointer after an object is deleted, and boom, the attacker owns the endpoint.
Section 3. The exploit chain.
To truly understand the threat, we have to look at how Threat Labs researchers observed adversaries weaponizing this flaw out in the wild. Because this isn't just theoretical, this is highly operationalized cyber warfare happening right at the memory level. Attackers rely on a very reliable three-step sequence that leverages that iepeers.dll component to force the CPU to execute arbitrary shellcode. First up, the malicious JavaScript runs a quick version check to initialize the address of the shellcode. Then, step 1, it initiates a heap spray, basically flooding the browser's memory with malicious code. Step 2, the exploit intentionally triggers that use after free air, forcing the application to call upon that invalid, deleted memory pointer. And finally, step 3, because the memory was completely sprayed in advance, the CPU is tricked into landing right on the attacker's shellcode, executing it with the full privileges of the logged-in user.
And here's where it gets really nasty, showing how threat actors maximize their success rates. Threat Labs noted that adversaries didn't just cross their fingers and rely on one single exploit. Oh no. They frequently combined the exploit code for CVE 2010-0806 right alongside another brutal memory corruption vulnerability, CVE 2010-3962, packing them both into a single, highly obfuscated JavaScript payload. By hosting these dual threat payloads on malicious domains and constantly shifting their obfuscation techniques, attackers pretty much guaranteed that if one vector somehow failed to compromise IE 6 or 7, the other one was right there to finish the job.
Section 4. The Patch Protocol.
Okay, knowing how the adversary operates is only half the battle, right? Let's initiate the mitigation protocol immediately so we can lock down your perimeter. Back on May 20, 2026, CISA officially slapped this specific use after free vulnerability onto their known exploited vulnerabilities catalog. And they didn't just issue a polite warning. They dropped a strict mandate under Binding Operational Directive 2201. The directive is crystal clear for federal agencies, and honestly, it serves as the gold standard for private enterprise too. It says, apply mitigations per vendor instructions, or discontinue use of the product if mitigations aren't available.
The timeline here is unforgiving. You've got until June 3, 2026 to ensure absolute compliance. If you have systems relying on these outdated common platform enumerations, I don't care if it's a legacy Windows Server 2008 box or some dusty old XP terminal in a back room, you must either apply the final vendor mitigations or completely rip these vulnerable legacy browsers out of your network infrastructure for good. Updating to a modern, supported browser architecture is literally the only definitive way to neutralize these combined heap spray attacks.
Section 5. The Ethics Code.
Look, I am pushing this coordinated vulnerability disclosure because maintaining perimeter security requires ruthless visibility. As white hat researchers, we don't just find flaws and quietly walk away. We force the administrative hand to ensure the entire ecosystem is hardened against active exploitation. We hunt down these massive architectural vulnerabilities. We track them across decades of telemetry, and we issue these intelligence drops because you, the user, need to know exactly what is exposing your systems so you can protect them. Unpatched legacy tech isn't just technical debt anymore. It is a wide-open door for remote code execution. And hiding the reality of these exploits, that only benefits the adversary.
Which brings us to our final operational question today. What other 16-year-old ghosts are hiding on your network right now? Think about it. If a vulnerability from 2010 is still triggering federal mandates in 2026, you really have to ask yourself what else is lurking in the forgotten corners of your infrastructure. So, audit your legacy systems, implement those patches, completely discontinue unsupported tech, and until next time, stay secure.